Hi friends, I'm coming to you today from the Newark Earthworks here in Licking County. These mounds were built by the Hopewell Native American culture between 100 BC and 500 AD. They represent the largest set of geometric earthen enclosures in the world. When they were fully intact, they encompassed more than 4 square miles. The earthworks are a National Historic Landmark, and they are the official prehistoric monument in the state of Ohio. They are also being considered for designation as part of a World Heritage Site, along with other Hopewell earthworks in Ohio. Agricultural and later city development destroyed much of the earthworks, but 3 major parts have survived. The first is the Great Circle earthworks. It's nearly 1,200 feet in diameter. The wall is about 8 feet high, and just inside the wall there is a trench that's about 5 feet deep. The Right earthworks is a fragment of a nearly perfect square enclosing an area of about 20 acres. And the Octagon earthworks has, as you guessed it, 8 walls, each 550 feet long and 5 to 6 feet high. And that encompasses about 50 acres. Of course, we don't know for sure the purpose of these mounds, but they were likely used for ceremonies, for burial, and for astronomical observation. One theory of why the earthworks were built on such a large scale is that it provides astronomical accuracy. Long, straight embankments provide longer sight lines that increase the accuracy of astronomical alignment. In 1982, professors Ray Hively and Robert Horn of Earlham College in Indiana discovered that the Hopewell builders aligned these earthworks to the complicated cycle of risings and settings of the moon. The Octagon earthworks in particular are aligned with the 4 moon rises and the 4 moon sets that mark the limits of a complicated 18.6 year-long cycle. I'm standing in the middle of the Great Circle earthworks. This was likely used for ceremonial purposes. Over the years, the Great Circle has been the site of the Licking County Fairgrounds, the Ohio State Fairgrounds, an amusement park, a horse racing track, and a military training field. The Great Circle got me to thinking about the circle of God's people, which could never be encompassed by any physical boundary. The circle of God's family is always open, always receiving, always growing. I was curious if the Bible ever referred to God's people as a circle, and sure enough, it does, once, in Psalm 73. In that passage, the psalmist is having a crisis of faith. It's not fair how wicked people prosper and how the righteous suffer. So the psalmist makes his complaint, and then in verse 15, he stops himself and realizes that the only thing his bad attitude is accomplishing is separating himself from God and from the community of faith. So Psalm 73:15 says, "If I had said, 'I will talk on in this way,' in his complaining, I would have been untrue to the circle of your children." What brings the psalmist through this crisis of faith is his identity as a member of God's family, his inclusion in the circle of God's people. A crisis of faith doesn't have to be dramatic. It can seep into our hearts and minds slowly over a long period of time. It can be triggered by unfairness, illness, disease, depression, anxiety, loneliness, fear, or any number of things. And it happens to all of us at different times in our faith journey. When you start feeling it, and you'll recognize it because your prayers will start to sound like a long list of complaints to God. But when you start to feel it, I want you to imagine yourself standing within the circle of God's people. Your identity is not bound up in your struggles and your challenges any more than it is in your victories and successes. Your identity is bound up in your acceptance as a member of God's family. You are God's beloved child. Don't forget it. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you again soon.